Hello and welcome back to Searles Place. I'm Program Director Jody Eichelberger. We are thrilled to have you with us tonight. One note is this is actually our first hybrid event where we have you folks home online, and also we have a small little audience here in the house. It would be fun to get to know a little bit about people, so we have a little, even though we're live here, if you're watching on Monday the 26th, there is a little bit of a delay. So if you want to just type in the comments where you're watching from, then I can say hi to you. Got my little device right here, and I see there are some eyeballs on our screen. So send a little message, and in about 20 seconds I'll get it, and I can say hi too. I also do want to acknowledge a few people that are here in the house with us. One is Executive Director Greg Hahn, who's going to be doing the switching for you from between the cameras. Marnie Elmore, who is running our camera. And we also have one of our board members in the audience tonight. That's Diane Dorman. And I want to do a call out to Lita Harris-Newstetter as well, who very early during Faith's residency actually, did an interview for her radio show, The Lovely Afro, which I'm not sure if it's still on SoundCloud or not. Look up Lovely Afro. She has copyright issues and it has to disappear. But it's going to reappear later without the copyright music. So you can hear just the part with Faith, and it's a really great background. They went all over Faith's journeys in life and discovered all those things. Let's see, nobody's saying hi to me yet, apparently, and not in my comments, so I don't know where you are. You're a mystery. Maybe you're watching from the bathroom, and I would be embarrassed to write that too. So that's okay. We do also want to mention that Searles Place is a residency program where we have artists from the United States, all over the world, generally here for a month. But we also produce events here in town, including the Friday Night Art at the Greenbelt Market, which is every Friday night through October 22nd. And that's just right by the Wave down on the Greenbelt. We also are resuming our first Friday. It has a new name. It's First Friday Art and Studio Stroll. And the first one's coming up on August 6th. And that's the whole district from 5:30 to 8:30. Faith is also going to be telling a story at Story Night tomorrow night. That show is sold out, but you can listen to the podcast in a couple of weeks and hear that story. I've heard it. It is hilarious. You're going to learn a lot about roadkill. It's not roadkill. It's bushmeat. It's bushmeat. Yeah. Let's see if anyone has said hi. Nope, nobody said hi. All right. You guys are quiet. But I do want to remind you, if you have a question during the event, type it in the chat, and I will see those questions at the end, and we can ask those of Faith after the reading. And so you're wondering, who is this Faith person I keep referring to? Right. Faith Adiele is our artist in residence this month. She has been such a joy to have here at Searles Place. She's been very busy in the community. I started out with her doing a cider and donut tasting, and it just kept going from there. We've gone to comedy shows. She's been to people's homes. And it's been a very active time for her teaching, even while she's here at Searles Place. She did a workshop and also has been teaching online. She is a full-time professor at the California College of Arts and also teaches all over. She is a graduate of Harvard, and I forgot to bring my prop. Will you grab my book that's over there on the other side of the projector? Thank you. Yes, there we go. She has written 2 memoirs, the Nigerian Nordic Girls Guide to Lady Problems? Yes, you need a guide. And also Meeting Faith, An Inward Odyssey, which I just read, and it's almost like a meditation just reading it. I got this from Rediscovered Books. It's got an interesting format because you have text in the middle, and then you also have text on the sides, kind of Talmud style. And the text on the sides are the actual journal entries during her time as the first black nun of Thailand. There you go. Meeting Faith, and we're going to meet Faith tonight with a combination of, it's a multimedia presentation, and so we will have some reading here in the room, and then we're also going to be sharing some video pieces and some images with you as well. So thanks for being with us here tonight, and now I'm going to transition over to our wonderful
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, everyone who's affiliated with Searles Place. Thank you, Boise, Idaho. I have had such an incredible time here. And I don't mean to sound surprised, but I am. And one of the reasons is because there's so many people I know here too, such as my colleague Mara, who we teach together in San Francisco. So I came just for you. I know, right? Wow. And then all the new people I've met, great friends. So it's been really lovely. Got my new BFF here, wonderful neighbors. Everybody's been so lovely. So thank you so much. And thank you for accepting our invitation to be in the audience. It's really hard for me to just read to Zoom. So I appreciate you being here for me to read to you. So I'm going to do a combination of things. We said multimedia. I forgot that I had said multimedia. Jody said, what is the multimedia? So today we have put together the multimedia. And we are going to start with a little clip, a 4-minute clip from the PBS documentary about my family, because that just kind of sums things up really quickly and kind of places me in the Northwest, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to actually be at a residency in Boise to reflect on my upbringing.
I used to go over to Seattle University Bookstore twice a year, go to the children's section and buy every book that was African or African American.
I remember that now.
Yeah, see, I knew you remembered that. Black as brown as tan, his nose, his face, is all the colors of the race.
You made all these clothes?
Oh yeah, every Christmas the dolls had to get new clothes, just like you got new clothes.
There's some African stuff. Here we have our leopard skin cape. Grandma's old petticoat.
I was raised on a rich diet of equal parts African folk tales and Norse gods. I devoured my mother's handmade books peopled by African princes and princesses, and spent Christmas with candles in my hair singing Swedish folk songs for Santa Lucia Day. And so then, because I was raised on African folktales and Norse folktales that my grandmother would tell me, so I think I kind of mixed them all in my mind and thinking that at some point there would be the perfect creature who would be a combination of Scandinavian and Nigerian, who would come over the hills and save me, who would recognize me for what I was, speak this special language that we only understood, and take me to some place where there were people like me. I always dreamt of a place like Harvard, a place of enlightenment for visionaries, Du Bois, T.S. Eliot, Gertrude Stein. But Boston was not the promised land. Everything was black and white, not just literally race, but how we were told to see the world and our place in it. And blackness was suddenly a matter of life and death, determining things like where to get off the subway without receiving a baseball bat to the head.
It was always important for you to find acceptance in the black community, but also to perceived as a black person, like holistically by the world.
I mean, I still had a very, had a strong sense of myself as, my blackness comes from Nigeria. I'm Nigerian. That's not the same as African American. I realized that, like, okay, I was definitely perceived as black, or as African American, but I didn't know any of the cultural cues, so I couldn't speak to African Americans. But Mike would coach me on some of these things. I'd be like, what are they talking about? And he was, like, much better at, like, speaking, like black women speak, and, like, and all that kind of stuff, And I would, like, try to do that. I would try to, like, mimic that stuff to a certain extent. I mean, I knew I really, like, couldn't carry it off.
I mean, you never tried to sort of adopt the street talk. It's interesting that everybody thinks I'm Jewish. If they see somebody like me, and I'm well-educated, and I have good income potential, and I have dark hair and olive skin, and I'm successful, they put that together and they think Jewish. It doesn't occur to people to think, oh, that must be one of those Latino people. Or, oh, I can see that he must be half Mexican because he's so successful and articulate.
Here I was supposed to be among the greatest minds in the country, but it seemed like the prison of Rattlesnake Hills all over again. So I did something my family of migrants and immigrants has always done. I went on the road in search of someplace better. I think I ordained as a nun as a rejection of all that external stuff projected onto me. I had to strip away everything in order to rebuild myself from the inside out. That meant cutting myself off from family and friends and moving to Thailand. There, in the forest halfway around the world, I joined Buddhist nuns learning to renounce their egos. And somehow, I recovered my own. But of course, eventually I would have to face my biggest fear and longing.
To return to Nigeria or to go to Nigeria. So that's just to kind of put you on the map. I was raised in the YAKIMA Valley in Washington State with my Nordic American family, my mother and grandparents, and had never met my father until I was 26 after all of this. And went to Nigeria to find him. And so the PBS documentary then follows us when we go to see him. But I really, since being here, I really kind of wanted to focus on my earliest influences, and I think kind of being back in the Northwest, I've been thinking about it a lot. Normally I don't come here that much. Well, I've never been to Idaho, but normally I don't come to the Northwest that much. So I'm kind of doing a little reflection, and I'm gonna cover a number of the things I've been working on here. So I was first gonna read just a little excerpt, about a 7-minute excerpt from where I grew up, because I rarely think about the landscape that I grew up in. My family was so much kind of in exile, and my grandmother was always thinking about Finland. I was always trying to get to a good school and get out, as you could tell, though that didn't necessarily work. But this was one of the times where I really was just trying to focus on what I loved about growing up on a farm and with my Swedish grandfather. So I'll just read a little bit from that. It's an unpublished essay called Nap Time. It's late spring in the valley, which means no rain, the sky like a bright blue bowl above us, an entire neighborhood of adults napping during the day like little kids, and Mom holed up with a stack of scratchy LPs from the library, her eyes swollen shut from allergies. Every farm up and down Route 2 comes the cry of something newly born, blunt-nosed calves to the west, musky lambs to the east, colts and kittens in the barn out back, mingled with the raspy, open-mouthed snores of Morfar and the other farmers, exhausted from the nighttime births. I'm up in the black walnut tree with John Moore, the neighbor boy to the west, spying on the Funks, our neighbors to the east. Next door, Mrs. Funk and 5-year-old David are out in the backyard, and David is about to throw one of his tantrums. From our perch up in the walnut tree, John Moore, who's 10, 2 years older than me, and I can watch the Funks undetected. We're interested to see how Mrs. Funk will handle David. Small and soft-spoken with a brown shag haircut and glasses, Mrs. Funk is the nicest mother in the neighborhood. Too nice, Mom says. She is exactly how I imagine Mrs. Brady would be if the Brady Bunch were set on a farm in Washington. And it's been a source of speculation ever since we found out that her sister is also Mrs. Funk because she married Mr. Funk's brother. The name confusion doesn't stop here. Both Mrs. Funk and David's sister are named Kathy after Mrs. Funk's mother, who lives in town. Mrs. Funk's sister, the other Mrs. Funk, is Cassie, which might as well be Kathy when whispered on the phone or shouted across an open field. That's 3 Kathys, 2 of them Funks, and 3 Funk women, 2 of them Mrs. Fortunately, the other Mrs. Funk lives in Oregon. Mr. Funk, tall, dark, and jovial, is named Noble. It's such a good name that no one else remembers his brother's name, which doesn't really matter since he and the other Mrs. Funk got divorced down there in Oregon. I can't remember having seen the other Mr. Funk. He's no Noble Funk, Mom likes to say. Since Mrs. Funk is trying to deal with David herself, his brothers must not be around. Usually she sends one of them, or his last resort, his sister Kathy. Large, handsome teenagers who already look like the town boys they are determined to become. The Funk brothers are always turning up around dinner time in department store slacks, looking sheepish. For the last 15 minutes that John Moore and I have been watching from the walnut tree, Mrs. Funk has been ordering David to go inside and get dressed. She wears a lime green pantsuit with a flowered belt. David, who is naked, jumps straight up in the air and begins to holler. John Moore turns to grin at me. We're the ones who told David Funk to take off his clothes. 5 minutes into our plan, Mrs. Funk looked out the glistening picture window and saw David on the front lawn next to the fat Christmas fir, bare-assed for all the world would see, as Morfar would say. He was dancing around and waving at the battered pickup trucks that barreled down Route 2, honking their approval, and out she came, moving faster than we'd anticipated. "Run!" John Moore shouted, and we scattered, he and I taking off towards my house, gravel spraying everywhere, while David foolishly headed for his own backyard, Mrs. Funk hot on his naked tail. Having planned for just such an event, John Moore and I know exactly how long it will take to reach the walnut tree between the Moore farm and ours. We pull our tanned arms and legs, breath roaring in our ears, going faster than we need to. No one's chasing us, after all. Breath, danger, speed, breath, danger, speed, delight. We fly past Morfar's workshop, churning up gravel against the metal doors, ping, 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 and make an unnecessary but elaborate detour past the abandoned bunkhouse, speed. We tear through the carport, scattering a family of swallows. Squawking, they dip and exit, heading towards a cloudless sky, breath. After that, it's through my private raspberry patch, thick with bumblebees and pollen. "Oh no," I shout, "danger, the poison forest." The prickly leaves tear at our t-shirts, drag spidery scratches down our bare arms. John Moore nearly loses a sneaker in the mud beneath the big maple. "Watch out for the quicksand," he warns as I squish my way through, upturning baking dishes with a great clatter. We reach the walnut tree, stomping over black husks that cover the ground like coal, sending them in all directions. "Oh boy," I say, "oh boy." I'm shaking so hard the swing keeps spinning in my hands. "Hurry, hurry," John says, poking me in the ribs with a hard, fleshy finger. Finally, I manage to shimmy up the tree, scraping both knees and palms in the process. It takes John Moore a little longer to climb because of his weight. "Come on," I cheer as he hoists his soft belly over the fence and huffs. The pink of his cheeks spreads and blotches up to his eyes. He has breasts like a girl, which makes me want to look away and then look back at their size, the way they quiver when he exhales. High in the branches, we pant, marveling at what a close call we had. We're safe. Everyone's napping. Besides, David Funk never tattles. And I'll stop there. Suffice it to say, I was very bad, and David pays the price. So, okay, so the next piece I'm going to show has an image, and it comes from a project. I do a lot of work with travel writing, and particularly kind of decolonizing travel writing, and one of the groups I work with is Off Assignment, and they have this really cool project that's called Letter to a Stranger, where if there's someone you've been haunted by in your travels, you write them a letter, and it happens in the second person, and it's just such a kind of a beautiful way of honoring people on the road that we may not have even got to meet. So during the pandemic, they did a shorter version of flash things called Postcard to a Stranger, because so much of our lives when we were in lockdown was like looking at people through masks, through the windows, and kind of imagining their lives, or kind of getting little lovely interactions, kind of small kindnesses. And so I wrote one about someone I hadn't realized was a stranger, and then it has since been developed. They asked me to write it as a letter for the anthology that's coming out in August called Letters to a Stranger. So this is just an excerpt from mountain into this backwater carved from Native American land and settled by European immigrant farmers like my grandparents, lodging itself on reservations, in poor communities of essential workers, among the elderly, my hometown's demographic. Mom and I canceled flights and scrapped plans to meet. I promised to drive up once it's safe. I don't really think about the fact that she doesn't drive and can barely walk until she says, "Mario, my yard man, came by with armfuls of pasta and wouldn't let me reimburse him." 1 week, Mario, you bring 8 rolls of toilet paper, the new currency, paper towels, bleach spray, coffee creamer, non-fat, you know what she likes, and sauce for last week's pasta. Another week, it's 4 jars of her favorite peanut butter, special ordered. She's delighted, I'm grateful. And then she adds, so of course we had to gripe about the election. I wonder, where do you stand when you talk politics? Inside her tiny house? Wearing a mask? 6 feet apart? I try to stop myself from obsessing over the fact that you live with your parents and siblings, plus your brother's fiance and child. After all, your love of family benefits mine. It's not fair, but I wonder. Mario and I are careful, Mom snipes at me, sounding defensive. To you, she jokes, I better not tell my daughter or she'll yell at us. Please don't, Mrs. Adiele, you say earnestly, or she'll come and take you away from us. The anxiety in your voice surprises her. You probably know we argued. She's 78 and you're an essential worker. It's simple math, it's science. And yet, despite reports of seniors dying alone in nursing homes, families saying goodbye through glass, she, with her thousands of books, and you, science fair overachiever, have both chosen friendship over health. 700 miles away, I'm trying. I walk Mom through installing Netflix watch parties, and we joke chat throughout the movie. Whenever I hear about a book she'd like or that I'd like her to read for me, I download it to her e-reader. I have meal kits and puzzles delivered, but let's make myself cry. He's a sweetheart. Okay, how are people doing? Okay. Okay, so this excerpt, also about travel. So this is from an essay that appeared in Best Women's Travel Writing that came out in November. And it's about the first time. So I went to visit find my father and my siblings when I was 26, and my mom was really supportive around that. And then years later, PBS wanted me to go again, so they paid me. So then I took that money to take my mom to Finland and Sweden to find her family for her 60th birthday. And so this is from that trip. Morning on the Baltic resembles those educational films from geography class. Impossibly pristine and picturesque, unbroken horizon of blue sky and sea, placid with a hint of ice. At the announcement in Finnish, Swedish, and English of our pending arrival to Turku, everybody crowds onto deck. Below, among the warren of sailboats and containers, stand families in standard Nordic uniform, trim capri pants, striped boat neck tees, and sculptural leather shoes. Look, Mom trills, how sweet. A smiling family of blondes and gingers, father, mother, 2 daughters, and a son, hold a cardboard sign reading, Welcome, Holly and Faith. Behind them, dark-haired Romany women in long black velvet skirts and petticoats mill about, looking straight out of history. And above them, graffitied onto a warehouse tower, is a shaky swastika and the phrase, whites only, in English. Mom pauses her frantic waving, oh shit. I keep my eye trained on the smiling family below, our family. Maybe this is why people make such a big deal about me being Nigerian and Nordic. How in the world did that happen, they love to say. As if Nordic were so northern hemisphere white and Nigerian so southern hemisphere black that those cultures could never possibly interact. As if humankind hasn't been traveling and intermixing for millennia. As if people don't hop on planes, or in my father's case, a steamship, and relocate for jobs, education, love. We join the hungover crowds on the Sky Bridge and head to the terminal. As we come face to face with our Finnish cousins for the first time, the mother and father stick out their hands. Hello, hello. On the occasion of the second family visit in 110 years, it's hard not to feel like a commercial for air travel or DNA testing. Later, back at their farmhouse, sitting around their picture-perfect table with colorful Marimekko linens and Itala glassware, the ruddy, fit family of 5 chats easily about Mom's favorite topics, US versus European politics, the American versus the Finnish educational system, and travel, specifically the excursions they've planned for us in their medieval city of Turku. During dessert, Mom throws caution to the wind and confesses what we're both thinking. This is a relief, she giggles. Based on the men in my family and on what I've heard about Finns for about 60 years, we were afraid that we'd scare you silly with our talkativeness. Her voice ramps up, returning to retired schoolteacher volume. In fact, I've been holding back. Cousin Maria, irrepressible and dimpled, laughs. We've been practicing, she announces proudly, placing a flat buttery cake studded with bright summer berries in the center of the table. The family nods. Yes, her jolly husband pipes up. We heard Americans don't like the silence like we Finns do, that they especially like to talk at dinner table. So we've been preparing a little conversation. It was a family project, a tween contributes. After we heard your interest, we went to all the tourist sites in town, collected the pamphlets, studied them, and prepared the small talk. Wait, I lean across the tablecloth. You already toured everything? Just to make sure it was worthwhile, Maria explains. She winks. It turns out our town is quite interesting. The younger daughter, a redhead, adds, and it gave us topics for our chit-chat. Oko, a sturdy 8-year-old, shovels boiled potatoes into his mouth, laughing. At our final stop, our maternal village of Kirvesi, I find myself standing on a lawn dotted with wildflowers outside a white clappered house encircled by 6 sets of blue eyes, gleaming teeth, pink skin, and blonde hair. The 6 strangers, my affable Finnish cousins, crowd closer, nudging each other's broad shoulders and whisper in Finnish, a soft stream of sing-songy inhalations, 8 liquid vowels, feathery sibilants. They smell green, the scent of birch and eucalyptus, the aroma of the branches used to whip one another in the sauna. Upon entering each new family household, Mom has learned to declare her no sauna policy, tapping her chest as if her heart can't take it. She's lucky she knows so much about Finnish and family history, otherwise we'd have an international incident on our hands. Sauna is Finland's primary pastime. In exchange, she offers me up. Faith loves sauna. And until now, it's been true. I've learned not to flinch when dinner ends with virtual strangers stripping down. Our stranger cousins have been gentle, dividing themselves into shifts, allowing me to go with the women and girls while the men and boys keep Mom company before taking their turn. As we lounge in our towels clinking beers, I marvel at the black body being welcomed with no fantasies, either dangerous or erotic. Smoke sauna is traditional to Savo, the 6 men encircling me explain. Anyone can do hot rocks and steam, but smoke is for the serious, how you say, connoisseur. We plug the chimney, another chimes in enthusiastically. Because you want to die? They laugh at me, a sound like a mountain stream tumbling over rocks, because it's good for the purifying. The Savo sauna is a return to the original pre-chimney sauna where smoke filled the room. The original sauna that was the gateway between life and death, the place where women give birth and the dead receive their final wash. As you know, says the cousin who first issued the invitation, sauna is how we welcome guests. It's the best way to get to know someone. The 6 men nod eagerly, floppy blonde hair reminiscent of overgrown golden retrievers. Will you join us? Much as I love sauna, a friend in Minnesota once sent his red-faced teenage son out to see if I was alive, as no one had ever spent so much time in their backyard sauna. I'm wearing a lifetime of being a Black woman in America. How can I strip naked and enter a dark, smoky box filled with 6 naked white men I just met? I wish I could. Remember the video? And it was illustrated.
I'm Faith Adiele, reading from my story, Family Project. My cousin coughs and flicks a branch against my legs. Immediately, the tiny room blooms with the crisp bite of eucalyptus and pine. I glance down to see pinpricks tingling red up my calves, green fronds against brown skin. One by one, my muscles loosen and puddle, as if being massaged. I feel supported and weightless, the way I imagine Mom's womb must have felt. I glance up at this tall, blue-eyed, blonde stranger, sweating and grinning inches away from me, a Black woman.
Okay, and then the final thing is what I've been working on here. So you might remember from the beginning where Mom talked about how she would go over to Seattle once a year and buy everything. And she was not kidding. She wanted me to have a Black identity as well as see myself in the global world. And so recently when we kidnapped her and brought her back to California with us, I went out to the garage to see her collection of stuff for me that she's been keeping as a way of hoping to leverage grandchildren. And so there are about 5,000 kids' books, 1,000 paper dolls, 100 dolls with handmade outfits. So I stole some of the paper dolls And I figured I've been working on a graphic novel. So these were felt board dolls, and then these are like my very funky 70s paper dolls. And then anything that wasn't right, she'd put like fingernail polish on them to change their color, and she'd rename them if she didn't like their names. So I've been trying to create this graphic novel using this as the art, because I'm not an artist, but I've been trying to create these collages out of these paper dolls to kind of honor them, as well as the felt dolls, as well as photographs of some of the dolls I had. And I discovered some things such as my black G.I. Joe. I did not realize he was a G.I. Joe. She had taken all his guns, thrown them away, and said that he was Dr. Mark Luther, official government archaeologist. So imagine my surprise. Yeah, she rolls like that. So I've been playing with that, and I've been using, but the subject is actually my husband's dialogues. So my husband has quite a following on Facebook, much to his surprise. He has no idea, actually. And I'll be telling a story about him tomorrow at Story Night. So what I've been doing is illustrating these dialogues using these paper dolls. And so I have one I just want to show you. That's a layer of African fabric, and then I have some silhouettes, photographs, the felt board. And so, yeah, it's a combination of multimedia stuff. So, and this is one, I'll read it to you. So in the voiceover, O, who's my husband, calls from Nigeria to find out how my first live storytelling show went. And I know he'll be excited to learn that I performed with his favorite comedian, who has a series of one-man shows about growing up in Oakland called East 14th Street, and you'll see later on. So I say, hey, so I met Don Reed, and he was super gracious. He did that Lake Merritt bit you reenact every time we walk around the lake. And my husband says, ha, that guy is extremely very funny. Oh, see, he puts butter in his hair, and then, yeah, I know. We've seen the show 3 times, plus the 2 sequels, plus your reenactments. Then flies start following him around the lake, and then, yeah, so he liked that he's the only person who makes you laugh this hard in America. You told him, wow, my wife is really up there. And I'm like, do you remember auditoriums packed with students clutching my book? Pulitzer Prize winners raving about my dinner parties? Random fans giving us discounts? Oh, it should go without saying that I'm a fan of my wife. Did I not start this call all the way from Nigeria by greeting you, Honorable Pumpkin? Have I not taken my rubbish phone outside, exposing myself to armed robbers in Ebola for better reception? So this is what I'm living with. And that's all we have planned for you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm going to stand right over here because I think I'm close to a sound source. And
I think my mom's one of the people.
there was a delay, but I didn't expect the delay was so long. So yes, we are going to say hello to Holly Adiele, who made it online. And that's, where does your mom live?
She still lives in Sunnyside, Washington.
In Sunnyside, Washington?
Yeah,
She's still there?
Still there.
Okay.
Yes, we had to return her after kidnapping her. She's not being returned.
We also have Laverne from Pittsburgh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so that's probably the furthest away. And then right on the other side of this wall is another home that Kristen Jones lives in. And she's watching from right over the other side of the wall.
They have been
We
such
shot
great
really loud,
neighbors.
maybe you'll hear us. And then we have a couple more board members with us. Eve Marie Berggren, who's here in Boise, and Marnie Christmas, who could be in Idaho or could be on the East Coast. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Where are you, Marnie? Are you in Pocatello or somewhere else? Right. So now I have figured out where your comments are showing up. So if you have a question for Faith, please do type that in, and I can read that out, and she can respond. But I think one thing that I'd like to just ask first off is, in your proposal to come here, you had said, I think it would be very interesting to go somewhere that's similar to the YAKIMA Valley where I grew up, and to be in that place with that landscape and maybe energy. Have you found something that does, did it work that way? Did you?
I think it did. Yeah, I would have never read the nap time piece. So I think it's making me think about where I grew up and how it might have changed. It's just kind of rooting me in the Northwest as kind of the beginning of all of this and about my identity. And maybe also writing for my younger self. I think that's a lot of I wish I had this book coming up, or I wish I had someone who looked like me, or I wish I had somebody who said this to me. So it helps me channel that and, not writing for just kind of an abstract reader, but like with a purpose to communicate something urgent to the person you really want to be in conversation with, I think. That makes sense.
So something about the landscape and the place in the world brought you closer to your younger self.
Yes, yes. Because I mean, one of the things that was, my husband was really surprised at when we returned my mother, was that I seemed so urban to him. And he's like, you grew up here? What? You know, and that's why this, and that's why you like animals, and that's why you kind of know how to do these things, and you know, this kind of muscle that doesn't get exercised all the time. I think it was great to kind of come back to that.
Thank you. A question from inside the room. Does someone have a question? It's inside the house.
I have a question, comment. When did you write the nap time piece?
It's been quite some time.
Okay, because it evokes such a like, rich experience of childhood without cares, or when the cares are just so different, that I didn't live that, but it certainly immersed me in that moment of childhood where, you know, it's unstructured time and you get to just like be, you know, which is so opposite of how it is for children today,
Right.
But also how it is for most adults today. You know, we're all so structured, you know, everything seems so rigid that I really appreciate hearing that, and I do want to hear more about that time for that, you know, just for that purpose, to be able to evoke our own memories of, you know, if we get to have them, of that kind of free childhood that you had.
Thank you. I've actually been, because I lead like a meditation and writing session online, and I've been doing a number of, that's kind of come up too, like summer when the days used to last forever and we could just wander, and I'm kind of trying to take people on that journey. I realize not everybody's childhood was joyful, but for me, it feels like it was always summer or Christmas, and the days lasted forever, and we didn't have a destination. It was just wandering and following whatever interested you. Which I really do appreciate that about my upbringing. I got frustrated when I got older, but as a child on a farm, it was fantastic. Yeah.
Just the word flannelgram took me back. I had a lot of Sunday school flannelgram storytelling sessions.
Oh my gosh.
We do have a question from next door. Kristen would like to know if your husband has had a preview or is in the know about the story that you'll be presenting tomorrow at Story to Story Late Night.
Yes, he has. Though the first time I did live storytelling, it wasn't that story, it was another story that he was in, and he was with me in the audience, and then I like got up on stage and told the story. And then everyone's watching him the entire time, and then they like turned to him afterwards and they're like, rebuttal, and he's like, it's all true. So he's very, very good natured. I write a lot about him. I wrote a whole long piece that's in the Rumpus about our courtship, our like 20-half-year off and on courtship, and I've made like a PowerPoint presentation out of it. And he's like cracking up all the time. He's like very, very good natured about the whole thing.
That's like being married to a comedian. You become part of the set piece.
Exactly, and I didn't really know that was going to happen, but he shouldn't be so damn hilarious then.
Yeah, that's right. Greg is another board member who's watching, and he just wanted to share that he enjoyed hearing about the funks.
The funks. God, I hope he doesn't know them. Chances are people know them.
Oh.
It's hard to hide that name.
Yeah.
Right? I think they're in Portland, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, they might have met in the sauna. So one of the other things that you did while you were here for about a week was the VONA workshop, which is a workshop for travel writers. And that was another thing you mentioned in your proposal, is that you were kind of interested in leading a travel writing workshop in a place that you had never been before.
Right.
So were you able to use some things from Boise, from this new place, in that week of training?
I think I didn't use actual sites, but I think one of the things we talked about is our travel selves. So I teach this summer workshop for travel writers of color, and it's the first of its own in the nation. And the whole idea is broadening the definition of travel, that it doesn't always have to be international and leisure, and that it could be these roots journeys, it could be changing class, like all sorts of kind of recovery and spiritual narratives. I'm really trying to broadly define travel, and that part of it is a mindset. And I know that like when I'm traveling, I really love my travel self because I'm like adventuresome, I talk to strangers, I get lost and I waste time and I see things. And when I'm in my normal life, it's just like A to B, and if the bus doesn't come, you're annoyed, and it's just like, and my life becomes smaller. I become more fearful of things and I need more objects. And I was like, I really like my travel self. So that was part of it. It's like, let's just be in travel mode wherever we are. And so being in Boise has definitely put me in travel mode. I'm like, neighbors are coming by. Lou comes by and reads me poetry. I mean, how fantastic is that? So just being open to seeing things and connect with people and getting lost and, looking at a map and taking advice from someone else and asking them what they should do. You can do that in your ordinary life. And my best friend Mike and I used to do that to each other. We'd call each other up and say, today's a travel day. And we would have to move through the world that way, and as opposed to just A to B, and just we'd have to experience our ordinary home in a different way. And so I think that's really happened. I've definitely been in travel mode since being here. Super excited about everything. I'm Instagramming like my kombucha, and like everything I'm doing here is like, so yeah, I think that helped, put me in that travel space to then convey that excitement to the, to the students, and to talk about how could we turn everything into a travel experience.
I didn't have GPS tracking on Faith, but in a way I did.
Right.
Because we are called Garden City, but we're really a village. And every once in a while I get a text or an email from somebody who's like, hey, I just met your resident. She was at the Greenbelt Market. Or, hey, we saw your resident at Push and Pour. And so I was like, okay, I know what Faith is up to today. Yes, Michael.
Tom. So what's the short-term prognosis for that industry? I have a friend, a National Geographic traveler. That title's over. He's looking for new work. There's a Boise woman who lives in Nashville who's struggling with it. And what's the future of travel right now?
It's interesting. I mean,
Rick Steves isn't going anywhere for a year.
Really? Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I get asked that a lot. I've had a lot of work just in terms of, everybody wants to write the article of like, where do we go next and what do we do next? And I've been teaching classes on where do you, travel writing when you can't travel anywhere, And part of it is actually, it's good for your writing, not necessarily for service articles, which, rely on you going places and getting people to go to those places. I'm interested more in literary travel, so it works really well because this is the reflective period. That's the, this is the Plato's Cave moment where we're like really kind of making sense of it. And also, I was just in a piece that came out in the Toronto Star yesterday, which was about people going home more. And I was like, that is definitely something I'm doing. Like I've been going to the Northwest and doing more local stuff and kind of paying attention to things I hadn't paid attention to. I was supposed to be in Paris at a residency, and here I'm in Boise in a residency and loving it just as much. But at the time, people were like, Paris? Le Bois, exactly. So, so there are definitely going to be people who have lost their jobs. But I think it's also made us value travel even more, and I think there are going to be different ways they're doing it. One of my friends who zoomed in for the class, she's in Stockholm and her work continues, but then she's doing this cool stuff where you can shop in markets online. She'll take you to the Grand Souk, or she'll take you to Lekki Market in Lagos or something like that. And she has people with phones going around to different vendors, and then you can select what you want and it'll be sent to you. So I think also making a way out of no way, really cool things will happen too. And jobs will shift. But of course I'm mourning for the things we've lost too. So it's complicated. Hey Lou.
I find this a really fascinating line of inquiry. I mean, notwithstanding the difficulties for people who have been in the travel industry and how disruptive that will be, but the notion of our entitlement, the sense that we're entitled to vacations, we're entitled to get on airplanes, we can really rev up the carbon and plant a few trees and feel like that's okay.
Right.
And your notion of rethinking what does it mean to be a traveler, because I think, but beyond going to Destination X,
Right.
that sense that you have of leaving a lot of your belongings, being somewhere strange, maybe seeing that extroversion that is hidden somewhat, and then, to me, most critically, is altering your sense of time and space. That this, to me, ties back to your Thai meditation. That it's this journey inward that's as interesting and as exciting and as unfathomable as going to Finland. And so I think there's a tremendous merit in helping people. It's like the inner journey, and you don't know that's what you signed up for with your workshop.
Right. I am trying to treat people that way. And that's one of my critiques, because the language that we inherited to talk about travel was based on the colonial model. So it's very transactional and acquisitional and consumerist. And yes, my glamorous life is so stressful, I need to go somewhere where where you're not weighed down with all of the fabulous electronic trappings that I have, so I can unplug and like get this authentic experience for me. And so that's one of the things I'm trying to look at too, like how do you travel in a way that's less problematic and talk about other places that are, and recognize that everybody's place that you visit is home to someone else. And so, yeah, this is an opportunity to become more thoughtful about how we are in the world. And definitely we're seeing the environmental and other impact. We're also seeing how interconnected we are, which was super important to realize for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere consuming most of the resources.
Yeah. We're getting close to wrapping up. You do have an invitation to rejoin Laverne on her upcoming podcast, Black Girl Back Talk, Stories of Racial Bias from Girlhood to Womanhood. So you can respond to that later.
I'm committing it on camera to doing that.
All right, there you go. Laverne, you got a booking right away. Very good. So I guess maybe, and I don't know if there's an answer to this question necessarily, but we've titled tonight Survival Stories. And it strikes me how you really have used and share techniques for others to use stories as a means of survival.
Right.
So I just wondered if there's a few things to say about how people can do that, how they can use story to survive.
That's beautiful. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was really one of my major journeys in becoming a writer, because, as an immigrant kid and also as a person of color, I felt like the work I needed to do work of service to the community. So I felt guilty around, studying art. So I didn't do it. I tried to study economics and do useful stuff, which was a terrible, terrible mistake. That did not work out very well at all. But I was doing social justice work. I was doing immigrant and refugee work. I was doing diversity and inclusion training. I was running a social justice organization that trained students. And I noticed that every time we had to make a big decision, people would tell a story about themselves. They would this is where I come from, and this is where what matters to my people. And I was like, oh my God, storytelling is key to how we live and it's how we say who we are, what matters to us. And when you see even when you study stories of genocide, those are conflicting national narratives. Narrative is how we make sense and make our way through the world. And so, and having the opportunity to kind of reflect on your narrative and overcome maybe some of the shame of things that you weren't allowed to talk about is really kind of key, I think, for any kind of development. And you can't really be doing effective change work if you haven't worked on yourself and you don't understand where you're coming from and where your blind spots are and what your triggers are. And so I just try to take storytelling into as many places as I can. I see personal narrative as civic and democratic participation. It is crucial for transforming our society. And so I just try to give people skills for reflecting on where they've been, writing about their family members as characters, because that kind of gets them outside of your body, trying to find some of the key themes in your story, so that it's, when you get it on the page, you look at the details, you realize, oh, these are thematic things, and that's the way then you connect to others. I'm talking all about my was I supposed to give actual exercises? Okay. Okay.
You do have resources available on your website.
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of really kind of basic stuff. Some of the first things I have is just like kind of body mapping or mapping home and just kind of doing story recovery stuff of, you know, figuring out where are interesting stories. And then, so I've been working a lot also with like military vets and how they've been raised to like just have stiff upper lip and not talk about what happened to them. And so we're thinking about like, what are films about individual conflicts that they can watch, and then ask them to start to critique, and then they can kind of start to bring out their own stories. And then once one person hears a story, it gives permission to someone else to tell a story. Whenever it's something that's got shame involved, if you share it, then you realize like, oh, that is a legitimate story. We just said that, you know, I remember my father always said, oh, we don't talk about what happened in the war. You know, we've forgotten it. I'm like, you haven't forgotten it. You're spending a lot of time trying to forget it. And, you know, you think maybe you're over it, or you think no one needs to hear it, or you think that you'll just get stuck in the history, or you think it's not the thing of literature. And so the key thing is just telling the story. When I was interviewing the Buddhist nuns in the temple, like I'd interview them, and then as soon as I would put away my notebook and say, do you have any questions about me? Then that's where the conversation would begin. So when I was giving them something, and it was really this reciprocal back and forth of telling stories about our lives, and then we would really get somewhere. So I would just say, ask an elder about their lives, show some interest, do some background research. When you ask someone how they are, like really listen and kind of say what's going on with you, which may not necessarily be perfect. Say like, COVID has been hard. I'm depressed. I'm scared. I'm like, but you know, this part I've liked, you know, so just to, you know, the storytelling can really get someplace beautiful, I think.
Thank you. Well, I found that very inspiring. All right, last question, which maybe you know the geography of this. Swallow Rock would like to know if you have a public reading coming up.
What was this? I think she was lobbing me one. She's one of my former travel writing students from Thailand.
Oh, okay.
Lovely person. I think this is it. I think after story tomorrow, then I'm like wrapping things up. That's it. I'm like closing up shop for the summer.
Yeah, all right.
It's been a super busy summer, tons and tons of events. So yeah, I'm looking forward to not doing anything and collecting more information from my husband.
Yes. Well, thank you, those of you who joined us in the house tonight, and thank you to all of you that joined us online. You can find more information about us at cyrilsplace.org, including links to Faith's information as well. We have some people to thank, so you're going to see their names scroll across the screen in just a moment, who made it possible for us to project to you tonight. And we will see you again soon. We have next coming up is Molly Joyce, who is a musician, and she's going to be collaborating with the Open Arms Dance Project here locally on access for the arts and making the arts more accessible. So thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you again soon.